Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Amy Weishart. I'm the director at the library, and I'm pleased to welcome you to reading tonight from the anthologies Northwoods at Night and Rivers of Ink. We have 3 local authors here to read. And I also just want to thank, we have a lot of programs this summer. We've had a very busy summer of events. We have one next Wednesday, an author talk, a science talk, Greenhouse and Ice House Worlds, a lecture with Mike Coffin. It's at 5:30 p.m. We have a very full fall schedule as well, so please check out our website. And also a big thank you to our donors who make programs like this possible. We're a community-supported library. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve Long, who's the editor of both of these anthologies, and he'll do introductions for the authors. So thank you for being here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. As she said, my name is Stephen Long. I'm the editor and owner of 12 Wheels Press, which has published these 2 books. A little bit of story about this. This was actually one of the very first books that I had published 3 years ago. It's hard to believe. And so it came together in a matter of 6 months, and I just couldn't believe that it was able to come out the way it does, because it normally takes a year. But then I'm continuing the series on with Northwoods at Night, and then there's a 3rd volume coming out this December. And so it's just something that's just been growing. And one of the things that I started with Rivers of Ink was going around the state and having readings. And having contributors come and give readings of their selections or something else from the book. And I always wonder, it's something I want to keep doing. And because it's a commitment for me, it's obviously a very big commitment for my contributors. But when I was sending out the acceptances for Echoes of Ink, which is going to be the 3rd anthology, a lot of the writers were like, I'm looking forward to doing readings next year. It's like, okay, maybe I'm creating something. So but that's actually something I do enjoy at the same time, because it takes me to some beautiful libraries all over the state. I've been to Patton, I've been to Eastport, and I'm here tonight, and I've been to a bunch of different libraries, and everywhere I've gone, it's been a wonderful experience, and the audience response has always been very positive and energizing. So, as I said, this book came out first, and it features 68 local writers. Some of them are brand new, some of them that have been doing it for a long, long time. And so I wanted this to be something that was like really, really open to see what was out there, because it was my very first book. I didn't know what to anticipate. The response is really great. And then, so with Northwoods, I wanted to try refining it down a little bit and just focus on just the Northwoods at Night, the Northwoods, which it's kind of ambiguous about, it's somewhere north in Maine. And everyone might kind of have a little bit different definition. And so that actually cut down the number of submissions. Actually, it was Annaliese who told me, it's like, Steve, you might want to open up the focus. But it was interesting, the response that we got. And so now we're doing Echoes in the Fog, and so it's going to be focusing along the coast. And the response we got from that was just even more interesting. So it's interesting how these are growing, and it's been a lot of fun working on. This features 38 writers, and I always forget, but donations, or excuse me, sales from each of these books are going to be going to certain organizations. For Rivers of Ink, it's going to be going to Friends of Catawba Woods and Waters, and for Northwoods, it's for Society of Maine. And so another thing that I'm working on, sorry I'm taking up the time, but I'm trying to work on a project to where I could give free copies of these books into every library in the state that's interested in having free copies. And I've had over 110 libraries that have expressed interest, and now I'm trying to find a sponsor. And the challenge that I'm having with that is that because I'm a for-profit publisher, I say that very loosely, they don't really, I have not been able to find a sponsor. So if there's any suggestions that you might have after hearing these readings here tonight, please let me know. I'm open, all ears. But enough about me. We have 3 readers tonight. We have Annaliese Jakimides, we have Moeller, and we have Faith Lane. And so we're just going to go, let's just go with Annaliese because she's the first on the list. And we'll go from there.
15 minutes?
Sure. I was hoping to have more readers, but 3 is really good.
Okay, so Annaliese Jakimides, and I live in Bangor now, but my home turf, not where I grew up, but where I spent most of my adult life, is a very particular place in the North Woods. So it's Mount Chase, Patton area, which is the north entrance to Baxter State Park. So what I'm going to do is read the essay that I have in North Woods at Night, just so you know what's coming up here. I'm going to read the essay I have in the most recent anthology, and then I'm just going to read you the opening and closing of the essay that's in Rivers of Ink, so that you get a feel for that. And if we have time, I just want to read a small excerpt of somebody else's work that I find quite moving in the anthologies. So, I think it's always interesting for an audience, or I hope it's interesting, how we even came to the project. So I just remember having seen a general call out there for this first anthology. Pig and a Poke had no idea what it would look like. Brand new publisher, because Steve was a brand new publisher then, and you have no idea what kind of a product is going to come from that, or when you're submitting work, whether the work is going to land with work you want your work to land with. I mean, that sounds elitist, but I don't really mean it in that way. But I submitted, and I've never looked back. I've just never looked back. I submit every single time. It's been a joy and a delight to work with Steve and with all of the other writers in the anthology. And more people keep coming to submit. This is an essay, so it's nonfiction. And so as you're listening, realize that all of it is true, all right? I mean, I know that, and I say that because in this day and age, lots of people throw out the term creative nonfiction. And creative nonfiction is a thing, but it doesn't mean you can create the story of the you can't make things up. So there's a little bit of wiggle room as to what you might want to do in terms of, obviously, you're not recording dialogue. When you put dialogue in here, you don't live your life with that tape recorder going. And so you are trying to replicate to the best of your ability that kind of a thing. But everything else has to be true in any kind of anything you're calling nonfiction. So it's called Boy at Home in the Night Forest, a true story of the North Woods. Oh, and I should tell you this too. Normally an essay is, a personal essay like this is in first person, and my other one is in first person. But for some reason, I decided that I wanted to tell this one in third person. So the mother in this story is me, and the boy is my son. He comes from a place where night means night, sky means sky, where the world shakes itself out in scatters of light that to some might feel like a rationing. Please don't see withholding. Nothing is ever withheld. The sun slips along the hills, delivering a love letter from the other siders. A flock of birds jangles and swoops, kind of loops along the horizon. No one may be coming, but you will still be offered songs in the theater of heaven. The moon unpeels itself, and the diamonds tumble out. Night rises up, fluffing its hair, exposing the nape of pine neck, oak belly, naked and rough, unconflicted memory. And a black bear leaps over the railing of the deck, south into the night field, and then into the September forest. Not the forest across the dirt road from the boy's house, with the parallel rows of planted, orderly pines and an abandoned one-room schoolhouse's hollowed-out cellar hole, but the unplanned woods behind it, with budworm-ravaged spruce, iridescent maples, some oak, the elders and alders, so many fallen trunks. Assembled from barn rafters and old mismatched windows found at the dump, it's a sort of winking house, its eyes revealing this world in all its stages, that particular squint. The boy can't see far in the dark, and so only listens to the rustlings through the seedy goldenrod and timothy grass until silence swallows the bear, and the boy wobbles his skateboard onto the rough-hewn deck. On this dirt road, miles from any pavement, even of the nubby variety, the deck offers him his only ride. He breathes to a night rhythm, quiet, starry, solitary, some say dangerous, but he never thinks danger, never sees danger, has never been taught danger. Late, in preparation for a few nollies before bed, he'd flipped the light switch and flooded the pine planks, throwing deep tree shadows over the wood, splattering them against the shingled wall. His palm flattened against the door's gnarled handle, his fingers not yet curled for the pull. Through the floor-to-ceiling kitchen window, he glimpsed the bear balancing on the lip of his world. Its paw prints stand on the damp deck, unmistakable, huge enough, a real bear's prints. When his mother tells the story, she hears breath-drawn, shaky gasps, worry, maybe fear in the listeners' voices. Last month's story of moose hooves pounding on the steps brought chuckles, the raccoons tearing into trash bags on the twilight porch, pressing their noses against the living room glass, indifferent to John Coltrane's saxophone or Tracy Chapman's gritty voice, make people laugh. The bear story makes them worry. Does it worry you? She asks her son. Worry? He repeats. He looks at her and shakes his head. It makes me dream. Tonight, boy and mother pull the table from the tall window and arrange their chairs tight against the curtainless glass, tight enough to sense, they hope, the bear's body heat, hear the rub of its fur against the railing, smell its entrance. They sit and wait together. Staring up into the sequined sky, the boy finally begins to rise. Going out now, he says. He doesn't mean going somewhere, but literally out, as in outside onto the deck. She watches him through the window, his hip now slung out to the side, fragile in the cracked light, his long lashes caught in the charcoal dark of this gibbous moon. He mounts his board and balances in a pooled tangle of leaves on the red maple that grows through the deck boards, as the red maple that grows through the deck boards lets loose its last untroubled handfuls. Once her boy's out in the world where she wants to say everyone, but she knows that can't be right and hopes not, so she adds, almost, where almost everyone has forgotten the gift of darkness. She believes he will continue to feel that borderless, slow drizzle of time and breath, where the moon rises invisibly dressed in lemony smoke before it transcends space, joining heaven and earth. But this night, before he grows, before he goes, she watches him fill up with bare thoughts, leaping off the deck, sliding, stretching, disappearing. At what point he will leave known territory and slip into other worlds, she can't know, but she knows he will. Night rises up, fluffing its hair, exposing the nape of pine neck, oak belly, naked and rough, unconflicted memory. The moon unpeels itself and the diamonds tumble out. The sun slips along the hills, delivering a love letter from the other siders. A flock of birds jangles and swoops, kind of loops along the horizon. No one may be coming, but you will still be offered songs in the theater of heaven. He comes from a place where night means night, sky means sky, where the world shakes itself out in scatters of light that to some might feel like a rationing. Please don't see withholding. Here, nothing is ever withheld. So this essay that came out in Rivers of Ink is the same child, okay? He's my youngest son. And for some reason, and I don't, sometimes in the collection are works that people have already written and they submit to the collection. or they've already published it somewhere and they submit it to the anthology. I take this as an opportunity to write something brand new, that it's like a prompt to send me somewhere I wouldn't have gone. And so I do want to say that as a writer, I'm always eternally grateful to Steve and these anthologies, because none of this work would ever exist if he hadn't put out that particular call. So this is The Same Boy, and I'm just going to read you the opening of this essay and the closing of it. So it's letting go down by the river. And I will say too, that I have submitted, and am grateful to say, Steve has accepted an essay for the next anthology, and The Same Boy is showing up in this anthology. And I mean, all writers work differently, but I work in a way where I just kind of show up to the page with no intention. And so I'm never sure what's going to rise when I get there. And so he keeps rising in these. So here we go. Letting go down by the river. Just reading the opening and the closing. Soundtrack of my days and nights. Jamiroquai, Snoop Dogg, Handel, Carole King, A Tribe Called Quest, Debussy, Gil Scott-Heron. I select each one individually, put it in the player one at a time, not every one, not every day. These days the order is shifting, but there's always somewhere in the mix my son's Jamiroquai, a group I never listened to until after he was gone. He'd given me 3 of their CDs at Christmas, his last Christmas. He gave them to me with no cases, no sleeves, no envelopes even, just naked, exposed, vulnerable CDs balanced in the palm of his beautiful hand. Jamiroquai's Feel So Good is the first thing I danced to after the night he left us. There was no dancing for months, months and months, but when I finally danced, I danced to Feel So Good. And the ending of it goes, a brilliant cold beginning, this day's sun flashes in and out of the remaining leaves of the beech and maple. The scruffy alder branches brush my arms, carrying the box, a box that is heavier than I had thought a 5-inch cube of ashes could be. I balance us down the hardening bank, a new slipperiness underfoot, until I reach the place where I know I will be able to kneel, linger a bit, and let my child go. I hear the early morning traffic on Main Street, the idling engines at the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru. I slip the top off, lift out the bag, untwist the tie, and dump the sepia-tinged ashes into this river that will carry them to the sea and then around the world. I sit on a large cold boulder and watch magenta light rupture the sky. Time unfolds and undoes space. So as you can see, you know, you get this little tiny prompt. I mean, this is all we know when Steve says this. Okay, this is an anthology called Rivers of Ink, Literary Reflections on the Penobscot, the river, okay? And so the wide variety of work that shows up, because we're all so very different with such different experiences, makes for a fabulous anthology. And the same thing is true of Northwoods. I'm just gonna read a little excerpt because I just wanna say that there are only 3 of us here tonight, so you don't get to hear the range that's in these books, but it is quite remarkable. So I'm reading, this is fiction, okay, so there's fiction, poetry, and nonfiction in each anthology. And in the upcoming anthology, Steve broadened the lens here for us, and so people were asked to submit black and white images, be they artwork or photography, that were germane to the same Echoes in the Fog theme that all of us got. So, you know, you have a wide variety of that stuff. So I'm reading, this is J.D. Mankowski, who has, and this is why I love him, I love this work. He has just this quirky viewpoint on the world and how he tells these stories. So it's just, I'm going to read the ending of this short story, which is called White Canvas by Thomas. And, it's a guy sitting by the river painting, is through the whole story. Thomas could hear the deep groan and creaking of shifting ice. It was the only proof that the water was still there. Everything above it was under the cyclical spell of an ancient slumber. Only the eyes of aspens remained vigilant in witnessing the long, dark nights. Not even Thomas could fight the lullaby of snow falling softly from the heavens above, the flecks of ice being spun up by a rapid wind, the soft patter of a snow hare on the move, the heavy thud of spruce trees shedding their white coats. Then all at once it was spring again, and Thomas knew what he was going to paint. He was going to paint it all, every color of every season, all at once. He had spent years trying to capture moments in time, never nature's blinding essence. His spirit rose with the dandelions and clover. His excitement buzzed with the first flight of the bees. Thomas painted everything, starting with the body he left behind, nestled among the lupins in June. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all. I also have a poem in the Penobscot, Rivers of Ink, and a short fiction work in Northwoods at Night. The short fiction work, even if I read the whole thing, will take all my time. So I'm just going to read the first part of it and leave you dangling. And then, because I want to echo what Annaliese said about the variety of voices and styles, I will read the poem I submitted here and a little short essay that is just completely different. It's one of those wonderful things about anthologies, as she said, is that you get a chance to do something that you don't normally do. I am normally a fiction writer. As Moeller, I write mysteries. In fact, I'm going to be back here October 8th reading from my mystery, A Fickle Tide. And so those longer works, but is what I do. Every once in a while, you do get an experience that just wants to be something different. And so that's, again, the anthology is this really great opportunity to do that. So first, a little short story, and it has a kind of an unusual title. I'm going to read it from my own printout because it's double-spaced and it's easier for me to read. And this, by the way, two things about this book. One is you should know, and Steve didn't say this, that this was a finalist for the Maine Publishers, Writers, and Maine Authors, Publishers, and Writers. I always get those mixed up.
Writers and Publishers Alike.
That's it. For excellence in publishing. And I think this one did too, right?
Yeah, both were.
Both of them did. And that's because it's really also just really nicely put together, really good on the eyes. But being really old, I like to read double-spaced if I can. So the story is called Shadow Light. And what indeed is a shadow light? Well, I have to tell you that you're not going to learn exactly what shadow light is when I read the first, maybe third of this story. But you will certainly meet a woman who knows all about it, and she is able to see by shadow light. So the old woman nodded her gaily kerchiefed head to my question, but she didn't answer. So I tried again. Great grandmama, tell me about the time you lived in the forest up by Jackman near the lumber camp. I scanned her deeply lined face, hoping to read some expression, but she could look stubbornly opaque, and not just because her eyes were clouded and effectively blind. My father, her grandson, and a grandfather in his own right, says that for years he has been watching her curl in on herself like a leaf shed from the tree, shriveling on the forest floor. We never knew her age for certain, something around 100. Now, as I listen to the recordings I made during her final weeks in the nursing home, I see her next to me, a shrunken figure in an overstuffed chair with a time traveler's confidence to slip easily through the past and the present. Great-grandmama, can you hear me? I hear you just fine. Her voice rasps across the words. You asked about the time I lived in the Northwoods. That was more than a time. It was my childhood over 14 years. What do you care? Our family wants to preserve your memories. She grunts, lifts one hand with a dismissive flick. What makes you think my memories are worth preserving? Your memories are all we have of that time. I almost blurt out. Soon all we will have. The nursing home has been telling us for weeks that she's dying, multiple organ failures. I came to make recordings to let her life in the Northwoods live on, at least as family legacy. Great-grandmama, tell me about your parents. My papa was born to a woman who worked in the lumber camp near Jackman. There were still 100-foot white pines to harvest. My mama was an orphan abandoned by a kitchen worker. They were camp trash, never married legal-like, but they were in love. They built themselves a cabin near a brook that empties into the Moose River. It took all day for Papa to walk to the trading store on the old Canada Road and back. And are you their only child? Only one I know of. She may be shriveling away, but she still has a sense of humor. It must have been hard life, such long winters. Hard? I didn't know it then. Not when you don't know how others live. My papa hunted and trapped, traded for the little we needed from the outside world. There was game meat in the winter, fish in the summer, and smoked meat and grainy bread, grains in the springtime. The winters were cold. 16 hours of dark. We were used to it. We weren't afraid of no dark. Nothing stopped us from making the rounds of his traps. I still miss it sometimes, the quiet of a winter's night, with no sound but your breath and the wind and the trees. Great-grandma, weren't you afraid of living in the wild so far from other people? It was people we were afraid of. I was about 12 when I began to understand that we were squatters. Everything was changing. Abandoned cabins became hunting lodges became crossroad villages. Someone built a school, a church, a post office. People got together and elected a sheriff. I nod. I know it's still changing. Then we couldn't move fast enough to stay ahead of those men who demanded he stop illegal hunting and trapping. They made us leave whatever camp we were holed up in. Of course, it was squatting. The winter I turned 14, my parents gave me to an aunt who lived in Jackman. Well, they called her Aunt Lucy. Later I found out she was just the childless wife of a storekeeper. She gave them money. Later they went out west, Idaho, I think. Never heard from them again. Nothing? You never heard from your parents again? Neither could read nor write. I only learned myself as a teenager, only after Aunt Lucy managed to teach me the basics. Then she wanted to send me to a boarding school in the fall, but I was still wild under my petticoats. For a whole summer, I planned my escape. And you'll have to find out by getting the book if she escapes. So I'm going to read, I have two things here. And this is one of those times where you have a little experience and it just wants to be a poem. When Steve put out the call for the Penobscot River, I actually dug this thing out and then kind of fine-tuned it, cleaned it up a little bit. Because again, as a fiction writer, there is no place for me to publish poetry. I mean, yes, here and there are some magazines, but then I'm one of 10,000 million people who send in a poem to a national magazine. So these anthologies are just beautiful, and I bless the opportunity. It starts off, it's got a really creative title called Penobscot West Branch in January, so there's a setting. You all know that it took on the West Branch of the Penobscot in January. We stood on the bank in our snowshoes. Is this the place to cross? A heavy crust of ice and snow, thick enough to trust? Come slow, come close, listen and hear. Of woodland elk chased into the current, hunting parties, arrows whistling, a skull with antlers washed in sand. Of silver splashes, bending rods, and fighting fish, eagles diving with talons spread. Of ice dams flooding settler cabins, loaded wagons overturned, the horses drowned. Of log rafts miles long, waiting, downstream the saw blades scream, of iron-sided barges and girded bridges. Our footsteps leave their mark on river and rock as they left theirs. Men who lived by deer hide, men who lived by lumber, men who lived by steel. Water roars and water whispers. The river does not sleep. While we breathe, we assemble memories. Come close, listen to the river. And one more little piece. Talk about the different flavors of the essays and I was going to read a different one. You see that my favorite ones that got all the pages turned right here. I may have to read that one. And one more. Here it is, very short. This is by Brenda E. Smith, and it's called Penobscot Bay, a Love Letter. And I'm going to read it like a love letter. February 14th. My dearest, I have loved you all 70 years of my life. You've enchanted me since the very first time my baby pink toes splashed in your shallow foam, thrilled by the sudden cold swirling around my ankles. The best days of my childhood were those spent in your shallows, frolicking in your chilly, buoyant brine. For a few hours each day as your tide ebbed and you exposed your hidden treasures, luring me to explore your shallow, rocky nooks for starfish, urchins, and tiny side-stepping crabs. Over time, I have grown accustomed to your ever-changing moods, knowing better than to expect any consistency or predictability in your presence. I love you as much when you are serene as when anger seethes, I have a hard time with that word, seethes from your depths, casting spray as your powerful swells crash onto land that restrains your fury. Your spirit is free and impetuous, and I adore how different you dare to be from day to day. Your vastness has no equal, except for the sky above you. And even then, those two elements, water and air, join in everlasting caress. Your moist, salty mist beckons me closer. I revel in your cool silkiness as you swallow me, wrapping my body in your embrace. I am delighted by the gentle rocking of the swells as I float up and over them on a steamy summer's day. Once, when I doubted your might, you knocked me off my feet and dragged me shoreward as a mother rebuking her child for ignoring danger, warning, and teaching all at the same time. When I feel sad or hurt, I seek comfort in you. Perched on a driftwood log, I can pour my heart out to you while you listen patiently. My deepest secrets I have confided in you, knowing you will hold all them tight within your grasp. Your sweet lullaby soothes me, that's another trouble one, soothes me as your waters melodically tickle granite beach stones worn smooth by eons of your persistent sculpting touch. You never judge me. Rather, at your side, I find serenity and the space to clear my head and weigh my options. You invite me to walk along your sandy shore and dare me to escape your playful surges, reaching to soak my feet with your kisses. Some days, when the sun reflects at just the right angle, your surface twinkles like diamonds with a billion specks of radiance that fill my heart with ecstasy. Your gifts have been far greater than I could imagine. I want to memorize moonbeams, a full moon shimmering across your surface, and recall the haunting late-night cry of a single loon aching for a soulmate as it drifts along your shoreline. I want to dance with your frothy whitecaps that curl and twirl with feisty abandon to nature's wind song. For however much time I have left to live, I intend to stay by your side. I wish I could be with you forever, as certainly you will flourish until the end of time, while my tide is relentlessly receding. Your wild beauty is the last thing I want to see when my eyes close for the final time in this life. I love you, my dearest Penobscot, beyond words, with all my heart, your loving soulmate. And that's a love letter to the Penobscot Bay. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Faith Lane, and this is the first anthology that I've been a part of, so this is the one I will read from. I'll tell you just a little bit about myself, and I'm actually going to read some of it because I don't like speaking extemporaneously, as we've been witnessing people do. I am a poet. I am an author of historical books, genealogical books. I am recently published a book with my husband as the photographer called Lighthouses of Midcoast Maine and Tales of the Folk Who Lived There, in which we visited a variety of lighthouses, and I researched genealogical research, looked at records, and wrote poems about the lighthouse keepers and their families. So that is our most recent book. I'm working on one that we did together from Alaska, a trip we took last year. I have 6 books, 2 poetry books, 1 book about librarianship. I mix it all up. So nonfiction and poetry are my focus. I'm actually going to switch it up, and I'm going to read 2 poems from Northwoods at Night that are not by me, and then I'll read my poetry, and that's what you'll get to walk out the door with, because, hello. This one is called Woods at Night by Alexandra S.D. Henricks. I can't explain it, why my rough-rooted, long-branched fear of the dark has been sanded down smooth, soft, hollow. When I step into moon-shadowed woods, why as night deepens and lantern light might catch an eye's starfire glimmer, the wild unknown calls out, home, home, home. And I recognize that voice. And this one is called Night Woods North by Patricia Smith Renzoni. Deneb, Vega, Summer Triangle, Vesper Spires, Meadow Sweet, Night Pollination, Evening Primrose, Grasshopper Graze, Cricket Racket, Pond Smell, Eye Shine, Feathers after fur, all tear. And then I will read my two. Also on paper. Font size is very important. Midnight, Daisy Pond. And Daisy Pond is in Baxter State Park, if you know that region. Midnight. I wiggle out from beneath my quilt, slip on my sweater and Crocs, head outside into the cold. After I've finished my business, I walk silently in darkness down to the dock. No flashlights for me. I have my phone if need be, that is to say, if someone else wanders this way. Otherwise, darkness and starlight. Gazing up, I greet old friends. Orion, mighty hunter. Queen Cassiopeia. Pegasus with the wilting Andromeda. Turning, I locate the Big Dipper, Ursa Major, Great Bear, Muin. Little Dipper is not visible here now. I marvel at the sweep of spilled milk that is our galaxy viewed sideways. All is so still until a loon calls hauntingly for its mate. I shiver, thrilled, and turn to head for bed. And this one's called Fireflies. We rise from tall grass as dusk approaches darkness. Our individual lanterns glow, mimicking the arrival of evening stars. We drift back and forth across meadows wet with dew. We shine in memory of departed souls, in memory of departed stars, in the eyes of a 10-year-old in the wilds of Maine. And that's all I have.
I'll read a few selections as well. The one that I like really to read at the readings I've been doing is called The Woman Who Walked Into the Mailbox. And I've enjoyed doing these readings because I know the writing, I recognize the names, but I don't know the story behind the story. And so it's been wonderful to meet, I've met Faith Lane for the very first time tonight, but I mean, I've known of her for a while. But to be able to hear the story behind the story of Annaliese talking about her essay, no, it adds something to me. And it's just like, okay, that's really interesting. I did not know that. And then it makes a lot more sense. You don't need to have that, of course, but I just kind of nosy like that. So it's always interesting, and I have not had a chance to meet Kristen Clanton yet, or if I have not been able to hear the backstory of this. But this is probably one of my more favorite stories in Rivers of Ink. It's called The Woman Walked to the Mailbox by Kristen Clanton. The boy grumbled when she put her hand on the front door. Just watch through the window, she said. Watch me walk the stairs, down the sidewalk. Follow the line of the river as it angles toward the road, and get your stool and watch through the window. The boy kicked his legs off the couch and stood in front of the television. Elma was dancing on a black stage behind the boy's head. Furry red arms and legs came out of the boy's ears. The boy turned to the window. A furry red arm came out of his mouth. I can't see the mailbox, the boy said. The woman looked out the window. The snow was fat-bellied for March. It fell under the full force of gravity without wind, like millions of the boy's tiny army men jumping from planes without parachutes. The woman frowned. Fog grasped at the rafters, the river. She couldn't see one rapid, one stone. I'll wear my red scarf. You'll see me, the boy whined. But you won't see me. Well, wear your red hat. The boy sighed. The woman had finished knitting the red hat and scarf just yesterday. The fibers were still stiff and unused. I'll be so fast, the woman reassured him. The boy dragged his feet along the rug, but went to the bathroom to get his stool. The woman heard a scraping sound, boots on wood. It was heavier than she had imagined. Aunt Caroline sent you an Easter package, the woman called down the hall. Don't you want a chocolate bunny? The boy emerged from the dark, the stool bumping against his shins. He smiled when he put the stool by the window, smiled when he put his red hat on. But it was a new smile, a harried one the woman didn't know. She put on her red scarf and opened the door. The boy grimaced. She really didn't want to go. Outside, she heard the river rushing through the serpentine turns, the sound of snow falling from the skeleton trees. She saw the boy through the window, rubbing his eyes. He knocked twice on the glass. The woman waved. Her hands were cold. When she got to the bottom of the stairs, she saw the boy's red hat. She pretended she could see his dark hair, his big eyes. She thought she heard the telephone. As the woman walked along the river, she imagined the boy at the window. Once, she turned around and waved, the face of the fog at her back. The mailbox lock was frozen. She chipped away at the ice with her keys. It took longer than she expected. It was darker than before. With the package on her hip, she hurried back to the boy. The house's face was hidden behind a varnish of fog, behind embankments of snow. She tried the house, she imagined the house chipped away from the cliff, the breaking weight as the wood planks cracked against the ice and stones. She imagined the boy in the window, swallowed whole by the house and torrents. When the woman got back to the river's edge, she waved the package above her head. She smiled her best smile, even though her lips were cracked, her teeth cold. The cardboard package was wrapped in bright pictures of eggs and green grass baskets, puffy chicks in pickups, a cartoon bunny lying on a rainbow, an entire spring day plucked from fiction. On the stairs, the woman could not see the boy's red hat. She could not see his dark hair, his big eyes. She heard the river behind her, ice breaking along the lines of hurried chutes. The fog rolled across the snow and ice, transforming the world into a hazy dream, one where the boy was a ghost and she was a ghost, and both remained unseen. So I'm going to read the final poem in Northwoods at Night, and then I'm going to read the final poem from this, and then we'll be done. It's interesting when you get these, because as Mo and Annaliese said, you don't really know what you're going to get when you put a call out. And it's interesting when I got these, it's like as I was reading the submissions, when I read this one poem, boom, I immediately knew it was going to be the very last poem. But for this, I had a really hard time because there was a really lot of nice poems. So I had to go with one that, well, I'm just a sucker for moss. I'm so fascinated by moss, what it can do. It's been around for a very long time. No moss. But so this is called Night Moss by Michelle Menton. Such glory is moss, pockets of breath, as if breath were cloth, and that feeling so alive, but oh, so soft. Look closer. Place your eyes at the ground, level, and you'll see many trees. How it's like many trees. Oh, sight of dirt's horizon, every miniature thing, every earth without sun's gloss. Smell the stitch of sand, of dead fall leaves. Feel the muck of heartbeats, of grasses so veined, limbs stretched towards moon, towards star towards, sighs mud-wounded, saturated swale of beings. Such closeness to green, oh, how can this world be full of so much ache? So, this one, my calls are always inclusive. Anyone who wants to submit can. I was really excited that I was able to get two young people, and I said young people, they were still in high school when they made the submissions. And I didn't know until after the fact that the poet for this one she was actually a sophomore in high school at the time. So I always like to throw that out there because it shows that there's there's still a lot of promise in this world. Isn't it beautiful by Avalon Tate? Isn't it beautiful? The earth is spinning, the wind is blowing, the birds are singing, and we are breathing, we are living, we are existing. We are verbs. And isn't that beautiful? Existence is not a thing, it's an act, a dance. You exist, you live, you breathe, you love, you cry, you wake, and you wish for tomorrow never to come. The earth is spinning, oceans are rising, wars are occurring, and we are screaming, we are drowning, we are dying. We are verbs. And isn't that terrifying? Existence is not a thing, it's an act, a dance. With every breath we take, we hold the power of change. Because we breathe, we love, we cry, we ache. And we wish that tomorrow will be accepted. The earth is dying, and we are denying it. We need help from each other. We are verbs. And isn't that a mystery? Existence is not a thing, it's an act, a dance. Most of us cannot make the changes the world so desperately needs, but those of us who can, must, because we love, we cry, we ache, and screw tomorrow, because today we need to breathe. Sophomore, so, but thank you for coming. It's great to have all of you here. There are copies for sale if you'd like to purchase some, but otherwise, just thank you for coming this evening. It's wonderful to see the faces here, so, thank you.